Hello everyone, and welcome to Did I Get What I Paid For? For those of you who are illiterate, or just don't bother reading title cards, today's movie is Dick Tracy Detective. That's right, I enjoyed the last Dick Tracy movie I watched so much, I'm doing another one. So far, no one has even tried to enter the Where's the Great Gazoo contest, so I'm gonna hide him in this episode 3 more times to see if you guys can find him. Our movie starts with this man in the shadows, and he looks a lot like Alfred Hitchcock. Okay, maybe it's master of suspense if you've been on Weight Watchers for 6 years. Did you see that? He was totally perving on her. And you know, guy in the shadows, late at night, you don't have to have seen every episode of Law & Order Special Victims Unit to know where that's going. I found out this Dick Tracy movie was made before the other Dick Tracy movie I watched. Only here, Tracy is played by Morgan Conway and not Ralph Byrd. Which I guess means RKO either didn't give a shit about casting, or Dick Tracy is a Time Lord. One thing would make that rather confusing. Ralph Byrd played Dick Tracy during the Republic serials. Then, Morgan Conway took over the role at RKO. But for the last 2 RKO movies, Conway didn't want to do them anymore. So the role went back to Byrd, who then took the role on a 1950s Dick Tracy TV series. Let's get back to the story, shall we? Remember our old friend, Lieutenant Irish McStereotype, aka Deputy Chief Inspector Pat Patton? Well, he gets a call about a woman's murder, and he decides to put his best detective, Dick Tracy, on the case. This pisses off Tess Trueheart, since she and Tracy were supposed to have a date that night. Oh well. Anyway, Patty and Tracy go to the crime scene. They find out the victim is a school teacher named Dorothy Stratford, and she only had about $20 in her purse. Tracy and Patton don't arrive back at the station until about 2:25 in the morning, and Tess, patient soul that she is lying on the couch in the squad room, waiting for them. Tracy and Patton go through the dead woman's belongings. They find 2 things. The first is a ticket to a concert that evening. Wait a minute, she went to a concert and her date dropped her 3 houses away? Man, if I were her and I wasn't, dead, I doubt I'd be giving him a call again. The other thing they find is a ransom note asking her to put $500 in a nearby trash bin, and it's signed Split Face. Tracy and Patton think she was killed because she didn't pay up. When Tess wakes up demanding to be taken home, they realize just how late it actually is. Tess forgives Tracy but says you better not forget again tomorrow night. First thing in the morning, Tracy's housekeeper picks up a call from Pat Patton. Tracy says he'll be down at the station in a few minutes once he finishes taking care of something. He then goes up to talk to his adopted son, Junior. This isn't in the script or my notes. It's just a question I have. This movie is set in 1945, and Dick Tracy is a police detective, right? How the hell does he afford this house and a housekeeper on a policeman's salary? It just doesn't make sense. Tracy and Patton get called down to the mayor's office. The mayor's freaking out. He says he's gotten this blackmail letter from some guy named Splitface. Tracy looks surprised. He thinks it's unusual that someone would ask for $500 from one victim and $10 grand from another. It turns out while Tracy was busy doing important stuff like sleeping, having breakfast, taking care of his kid, Patton and his boys were working the case. They found connections between Dorothy Stratford and some guy named Wilbur Thomas. Tracy and Pat decide to go check him out. And we meet who should have been the star of this movie. Before they can even get to the house, they find Thomas dead. And he's got one of those notes. But to make things even more strange, it looks like he paid the blackmail. Tracy thinks he spotted Splitface and chases after him. He orders Patton to stay there with the body until backup arrives. Right, a detective ordering the deputy chief. That makes sense. A few minutes into the chase, Patton catches up with them. They trap Splitface on the property of some cranky old guy. Tracy knocks on the door and asks to come in. The guy seems a little annoyed, but lets them search anyway. He's shocked when he finds out they're right. But during all the search and conversation, Splitface gets away. They start talking to the guy who lives in the house. He tells them it is strange for him to be home at this time of night, as he owns the Paradise Club. Like, that's not conspicuous. They go back to the Thomas house, but find nothing. So they go back to the precinct. And of course, Tracy makes a date at the Paradise Club with Tess Trueheart. Before his night on the town, Tracy decides to go see that guard they put at the spot where the mayor was supposed to leave his ransom money. They start talking the case and realize Splitface's actions make no sense. Stratford didn't pay the ransom, and she got killed. Thomas did pay it, and he's dead, which means no matter what he does, the mayor is probably f***ed. The patrolman thinks he spotted Splitface and blows his whistle, but we get a cameo by the second lead of the movie. Tracy and Tess go to the Paradise Club. Tess suspects he's trying to combine work and date night again, and she gets annoyed, even more so when the owner's daughter shows up asking for their help. She saw someone creeping around her house, and now she's frightened. However, Tracy decides to search the Owens house for more clues. So Tess decides to tag along. Nice going there, Tess. There's no way Tracy could get too distracted by work and remember you're there. And while that's going on, there's no way Splitface can sneak up behind you and attack you, right? Right? Tracy spends so much time checking on Tess that Splitface gets away again! Of course, we all know whether or not Dick Tracy gets consistently laid is way more important than the safety of the entire city. Tracy begins chasing Splitface. He does the whole rooftop Batman thing. And here it becomes obvious that the writers don't know the difference between astronomy and astrology. You see, his pursuit is interrupted by one Professor Linwood Stalling, an occult practitioner who's using a telescope. And because Splitface got away again, he decides to ask Dr. Caligari, his new psychic friend here, for help. The professor tells him that 2 lives lie bleeding, and 12 more are on the way. Tracy starts thinking this dime-store Dr. Strange might be a new suspect. After all, he finds a knife similar to the one used on Stanford among Stalling's belongings. So Tracy calls Patton and has Dr. Wiley interrogated. Tracy wants to find out what happened to Owens. So he goes back to the Paradise Club to finish his date with Tess. Only the place is closing up. Only Judy's still there, and she's freaked out. It turns out her father got one of those notes from Splitface, and now he's missing. Of course, he also owns an illegal casino, so she thinks he might be hanging out there, but she's not so sure. Tracy says just to be on the safe side, he's going to put her under protective custody. She said she doesn't want to sleep at a police station, so he suggests they go to his house. And, well, Tess isn't pleased by this idea at all, and insists that she stay there too. But Tracy decides to keep Tess busy back at the precinct. He's got this huge book full of photos of known felons, and he wants her to look through every single one of them because she's the only person alive who's ever seen Splitface. The next day, Patton tells Tracy that a knife has been stolen from an undertaker. Normally, this is not the type of case that would go to the homicide squad, but since it matches the kind used on Stratford that was also recovered from Dr. Herbert West over there, they're making it their business. This brings up a huge question for me. Dick Tracy has a reputation for being a great detective, but all he seems to do is chase after Splitface and let him get away. All the actual detective work is being done by Irish McStereotype type over there. So why isn't this movie called Patton Detective? Tracy and Patton go to talk to the Undertaker. And yes, He gives off that creepy vibe. And even with the unlikely name of Deathridge, this movie was made at the height of the Hayes office, so there's no way he's a necrophiliac, I hope. Tracy goes back to the precinct to talk to Professor Farnsworth. They start doing some free associating. Among the innocent-sounding words that he throws in are stuff like extortion, knife, and Deathridge. When Chris Angel Mind Freak tells him there's no connection between him and Deathridge, Tracy says, "I've got it." They go back to the mortuary to talk to Deathridge, only they find him dead. One of the cops that was guarding the place is found inside the coffin because someone clubbed him. He wakes up with a huge bump on his head, but is otherwise okay. But Tracy's getting really irked by this case, and he has no clue who Splitface is. He thought he could rule out Professor Frank because he was locked up, only someone filed a writ of habeas corpus and they had to let him go. It happened an hour prior, just long enough that he could have gotten to the undertaker's office and killed Deathridge before Tracy got there. So the investigation is back to square one. Meanwhile, Dr. Diamoniacus goes home. Splitface is waiting for him, and man is he pissed off. He goes off on one of those, "this is my master plan, and I'm only going to tell you because I'm going to kill you" speeches. It turns out Splitface was not the one who wrote the letters. Dr. Feelgood is guilty of something. It's just not what Tracy suspects. It turns out the extortion and the murders are two separate strings of crimes. Dr. Zoidberg just wanted to frighten people and get their money. Splitface was out for revenge. It turns out Dr. Varnoff's prediction of there being 14 deaths was wrong. After all, Splitface can't have loose ends lying around, can he? Tracy goes to talk to the mayor about his new theory. What is 12 plus 2? 14. And where do you find 14 people of various backgrounds and sexes? That's right, a jury box. So we asked the mayor if he's ever served on a jury. He says he had years ago. So they find out the criminal's name and put it out on an APB. Of course, Splitface gets word of this. Somehow he knows to go to Tracy's house. He abducts Tess and Judy. Junior hops in the back of the car to make it more visible. Miss Holloway, the housekeeper, calls Tracy. More warnings go out. Junior throws his hat to a passing cop, and every few blocks he takes off a piece of clothing to play Hansel and Gretel. Tracy and Patton follow the trail to the late Dr. Nick's house. They find Splitface. They fight. Patton is taken out in one punch. Even with his "I try not to kill unless I have to" tactics, Tracy manages to pad the movie out just long enough that it can reach 60 minutes if they have a little funny tag at the end. But once he gets to that point, he kicks Splitface's ass. So did I get what I paid for? It's a better movie than Dick Tracy Meets Gruesome. And there's an actual mystery there. It's a little Deus Ex Machina, but there are clues there. And if you're paying attention, it makes sense. And they keep the villain surprised. Just because I liked it more than the last one doesn't mean that I liked it. Choosing between Dick Tracy Meets Gruesome and Dick Tracy Detective is a bit like choosing your favorite kind of manure. No matter what you pick, you're getting shit. Okay folks, it's credit and preview time. And I hope you find The Great Gazoo.